The sound of the slap cracked through the afternoon air like a gunshot. For a heartbeat, the crowded bus stop went silent. The old woman staggered, her thin body swaying as her head snapped to the side. The basket she had been holding slipped from her hands, oranges rolling across the dusty pavement. A low murmur rippled through the crowd as people froze, unsure whether what they had just seen was real. "Watch where you're going, you stupid old woman," the young man snapped, his voice sharp with arrogance. A few people gasped. Others looked away. The student stood tall and unbothered, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, his university hoodie still clean and bright, like the future he believed he owned. His name was Marcus Reed, and at that moment he felt untouchable. The old woman slowly raised her head. Her eyes met his, and something in her gaze made Marcus's chest tighten. Not fear, not anger, recognition. She did not cry. She did not shout. She simply stared at him as if she had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Then she said quietly, "So, it is you." Before Marcus could respond, a black SUV rolled to a stop at the edge of the street. Its engine purred softly, expensive, out of place in the neighborhood. The crowd turned. The vehicle's door opened. And the first man who stepped out looked straight at Marcus and froze. Marcus's confidence flickered, because the man's face drained of color, and his voice, when he spoke, trembled. "My God," he whispered, "what have you done?" The old woman bent slowly to pick up her fallen oranges. And Marcus suddenly realized something was terribly wrong. That was the moment everything began to unravel. 2 hours earlier, Marcus Reed had been in a rush, his mind buzzing with frustration and pride in equal measure. He had just stormed out of his university building in Oakwood Heights, a working-class neighborhood on the edge of the city where African immigrants, African Americans, and longtime residents lived side by side. The campus was his escape route, his ladder out of what he called small lives and smaller dreams. Marcus was 21, sharp-tongued, brilliant in class, and deeply convinced that the world owed him something. He believed struggle was temporary, that people who stayed poor simply didn't try hard enough. His phone buzzed with a message from his study group. "You coming or not?" Professor changed the exam date. Marcus scoffed and shoved the phone into his pocket. He had bigger things to think about. An internship interview. A future downtown. A life far away from cracked sidewalks and bus stops that smelled like old oil and regret. As he walked, he nearly collided with a street preacher, ignored a woman asking for change, and stepped over a man sleeping on cardboard without a glance. In his mind, he was already gone from this place. The bus stop on Jefferson Street was crowded, as usual. Students, cleaners, nurses, delivery drivers. Life stacked tightly together, waiting to move. That was when he felt someone bump into him. Marcus spun around instantly. "Oh, watch it." The old woman stood there, short and slight, her back curved with age. She wore a faded headscarf tied neatly around her silver hair and a long brown coat that had seen many winters. In her hands was a woven basket filled with oranges, groundnuts, and small handmade bracelets. "I'm sorry, my son," she said softly. Her accent carried echoes of somewhere else, something older. "The crowd pushed me." Marcus looked down at his scuffed sneakers. One orange had rolled against his foot, leaving a small wet mark. He felt heat rise in his chest. "Sorry," he snapped. "Do you know how much these shoes cost?" The woman blinked, confused. "I can clean it. Please." Something ugly twisted inside Marcus. Eyes were on them now. He felt watched, judged, and he hated it. Before he could stop himself, his hand flew. The slap landed. That single act changed everything. Now, standing there as the SUV door shut behind the trembling man, Marcus felt the weight of the crowd's stares pressing in on him. The man from the SUV approached slowly. He was in his late 40s, wearing a simple dark suit that screamed quiet authority. He did not look at Marcus first. He went straight to the old woman. "Mama Esther," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you hurt?" Mama Esther smiled gently. "No, Caleb. I am fine." Marcus frowned. "Caleb?" The man turned sharply, his eyes locking onto Marcus like iron clamps. "Do you know who you just touched?" Caleb asked. Marcus lifted his chin. She ran into me. It's not my fault. A ripple of disbelief moved through the crowd. Caleb laughed once, bitter and hollow. Not your fault, he repeated. He looked back at Mom Esther. He doesn't know, he said softly. She nodded. Of course he doesn't. Marcus's heartbeat quickened. Know what? Mama Esther straightened slowly, her presence suddenly filling the space in a way that made the noise of the street fade. People leaned closer without realizing it. Life has a way of testing the hearts of the young, she said. Sometimes it uses the hands. Marcus swallowed. He didn't like this. Look, I've got places to be. He turned to leave. Caleb stepped in front of him. You're not going anywhere, he said quietly. Not yet. Sirens wailed somewhere far off. The bus pulled in, doors hissing open. No one boarded. Marcus felt trapped. Mama Esther reached into her coat and pulled out a small wooden pendant, carved with symbols Marcus didn't recognize. She held it out to him. Do you remember this? She asked. Marcus stared at it. His head throbbed. A flicker of memory brushed the edges of his mind. A voice singing. A fire crackling. A promise whispered long ago. I've never seen that before, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Mama Esther sighed. Then the forgetting is complete, she said. Caleb turned to the crowd. Please, he called. Give us a moment. Strangely, people listened. The space around them widened. Marcus felt very small. Who are you people? He demanded. Mama Esther looked at him with sadness, not anger. I am the woman who prayed over your cradle, she said. I am the one who stood between your bloodline and ruin when you were still unborn. Marcus laughed nervously. You're crazy. Am I? She asked. Then why does your left hand shake when you are afraid? Marcus glanced down. His hand was shaking. The world tilted. Caleb leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus Reed, he said, your life is balanced on a knife edge right now. The bus doors closed again. The SUV engine hummed. Mama Esther turned away, beginning to walk toward the vehicle. Wait, Marcus blurted out. You can't just say all this and leave. She paused and looked back over her shoulder. You have already done enough, she said. Now you will see. Caleb opened the SUV door for her. As she stepped inside, he turned back to Marcus one last time. I hope, Caleb said, that you are ready to learn who you really are. The SUV pulled away, leaving Marcus standing in the dust, his future suddenly uncertain, his arrogance cracked wide open. And as the crowd slowly dispersed, one thought pounded in his mind over and over. Who was that old woman, and what had he just set in motion? If this story already has you thinking, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Stories like this only get deeper. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Are you in the US, Africa, or somewhere else in the world? And be honest, if you were in Marcus's place, what would you have done differently? Have you ever seen something like this happen before? Share this story with a friend, because what's coming next will change everything Marcus thought he knew. That night, Marcus Reed could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old woman's face, not twisted in pain, not burning with anger, but calm, almost gentle, as if she had known the slap was coming long before his hand ever rose. He lay on his narrow dorm bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly, clicking with every rotation. His roommates were out, laughing somewhere off campus, living their normal lives. Marcus felt like he was trapped in a different world entirely. What kind of nonsense was that? He muttered to himself. An old woman. A dramatic man in a suit. Strange words. A wooden pendant. None of it made sense. And yet, his left hand still trembled whenever he thought about her. Marcus sat up and rubbed his palms together. He prided himself on logic. Facts. Reason. He was not the type to believe in village stories or old-world superstitions. That was for people who didn't know better. Still, something about that encounter had shaken him deeply. He reached into his backpack and pulled out his phone. Social media was already buzzing. A short video had gone viral. Arrogant student slaps elderly woman at bus stop. The clip showed the slap from 3 different angles. His face was clear. The comments were brutal. Disgusting behavior. This generation has no respect. Someone needs to expel him. My grandmother's age. Shame. Marcus tossed the phone aside and clenched his jaw. They don't know the whole story, he said aloud, though no one was there to hear him. The truth was, Marcus himself didn't know the whole story either. The next morning, he woke to a pounding headache and a campus buzzing with whispers. Conversations stopped when he passed. Eyes followed him down the hall. A few students openly shook their heads in disgust. By noon, his department head had sent him an email. Urgent. Report to administration. Marcus swallowed hard. Inside the administration building, the air felt heavier than usual. He sat across from Dr. Lewis, a stern man with gray hair and tired eyes, and a woman Marcus didn't recognize, sharp suit, tablet in hand. You know why you're here, Dr. Lewis said. Marcus nodded. Yes, sir. What you did was unacceptable, the woman added. Regardless of provocation. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. The image of Mama Esther's steady eyes flashed through his mind. I understand, he said finally. Dr. Lewis leaned back. The university is considering disciplinary action. Suspension, possibly expulsion. Marcus's heart dropped. Sir, please, he said. This scholarship is everything to me. The woman tapped her tablet. There's more, she said. Someone has contacted the university. Marcus looked up sharply. Who? She hesitated. A representative. On behalf of the woman you assaulted. Marcus's stomach twisted. Dr. Lewis cleared his throat. They've asked that the university delay any decision for 48 hours. Why? Marcus asked. Dr. Lewis's expression darkened. They said, justice takes many forms. Marcus left the office feeling colder than when he entered. 48 hours. It felt like a sentence. As he stepped outside, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't social media. Unknown number. He stared at the screen, then answered. Hello. Marcus Reed, a calm voice said. This is Caleb Johnson. The man from the SUV. Marcus's throat went dry. How did you get my number? That's not important, Caleb replied. What is important is that you listen carefully. Marcus stopped walking. Mama Esther asked me to check on you, Caleb continued. She believes you will try to run from what is coming. I'm not running, Marcus snapped. I just want answers. You will get them, Caleb said. But not yet. Why is she doing this? Marcus demanded. Who is she really? There was a pause. Once, Caleb said slowly, Mama Esther was known as Esther Freeman. She was a teacher, a midwife, a woman who saved lives when hospitals turned people away. Marcus frowned. So what? So, Caleb continued, she was also the woman who raised your mother. Marcus laughed, sharp and disbelieving. That's impossible. Is it? Caleb asked quietly. Ask Denise Reed where she lived before Baltimore. Ask her who taught her to pray when the lights went out. The world seemed to tilt again. My mom never talks about her childhood, Marcus said. Exactly, Caleb replied. Some debts are buried deep. Marcus felt his pulse in his ears. Why didn't she tell me? Because Mama Esther told her not to, Caleb said. She wanted you to grow without the weight of obligation. She wanted to see who you would become on your own. Marcus's mouth went dry. So this was a test? In a way, Caleb said. And you failed. The words hit harder than the slap itself. Then why help me now? Marcus asked. Caleb's voice softened. Because Mama Esther believes people can change. The call ended. Marcus stood there long after, the noise of campus fading into a dull hum. That evening he called his mother. Mom, he said when she answered. Who is Esther Freeman? Silence. Long, heavy silence. Why are you asking? Denise finally said. Please, Marcus said. Just tell me. Denise exhaled shakily. She saved my life, she said. When I was 16. When no one else would. Marcus closed his eyes. She took me in, Denise continued. Fed me. taught me, protected me. When I left for America, she made me promise something. What? Marcus asked. That if I ever had a child, Denise said softly, I would let her watch over that child from a distance. That I would never tell him who she was unless she chose to reveal herself. Marcus felt sick. You let me slap her, he whispered. No, Denise said, her voice breaking. I let you show who you were. Marcus ended the call and sat alone in the dark. For the first time in his life, he saw himself clearly, not as special, not as chosen, but as careless. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the window like impatient fingers. Somewhere in the city, Mama Esther was preparing for something. And Marcus Reed had no idea how much he was about to lose before he learned what truly mattered. The 48 hours had begun. By the second morning, Marcus Reed no longer felt like a student. He felt like a man waiting for judgment. The rain from the night before had soaked the campus grounds, turning the red dirt paths dark and slick. Clouds hung low, pressing down on the buildings as if the sky itself was listening, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus skipped his classes. There was no point pretending today was normal. He sat alone on a bench near the old library, elbows on his knees, staring at his shaking hands. Every sound felt louder than it should be. Every passing face looked like an accusation. He kept seeing Mama Esther's eyes. Not angry. Not vengeful. Disappointed. That hurt more than anything else. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Marcus, Caleb's voice said. You're up early. I didn't sleep, Marcus replied. That's good, Caleb said. Some lessons only come when the mind is tired. Marcus almost laughed. You people talk like riddles. Caleb didn't deny. Mama Esther wants to see you. Marcus's heart skipped. Where? Her place, Caleb said. If you're willing. Marcus swallowed. Do I have a choice? There was a pause. Everyone always has a choice, Caleb said. They just don't like the consequences. 30 minutes later, Marcus found himself riding in the back seat of the same black SUV. The city slowly thinned as they drove. Concrete buildings gave way to older homes, then to narrow roads lined with mango trees and small roadside shops. People stared as the SUV passed, some nodding with respect, others with curiosity. Marcus sat stiffly, hands clasped, saying nothing. Caleb glanced at him through the rearview mirror. You look like someone going to his own trial. Feels like it, Marcus replied. They stopped in front of a modest compound. Low fence, simple gate, flowering plants spilling over the edges. It wasn't rich. It wasn't poor. It felt grounded. Mama Esther sat outside under a shade tree, shelling groundnuts into a bowl. She did not look surprised to see him. You came, she said. Marcus stepped out slowly. The air felt heavier here, thicker with something he couldn't name. I didn't know where else to go, he said. That is how truth begins, Mama Esther replied. She gestured to a wooden stool. Marcus sat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Birds chirped. Leaves rustled. Life continued, unconcerned with Marcus's inner storm. Finally, Mama Esther spoke. When you were born, she said, you did not cry right away. You watched. Marcus frowned. I don't understand. You looked at the world like it owed you an explanation, she continued. Even then. Marcus felt exposed. Why are you telling me this now? Because you are asking the wrong question, she said gently. You keep asking who I am. You should be asking who you are becoming. Marcus looked down at the ground. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said quietly. I know, Mama Esther replied. That is what makes it worse. Her words landed softly, but they sank deep. You live like someone who believes tomorrow is guaranteed, she continued. That people exist to be obstacles or tools. That respect must be demanded, not given. Marcus swallowed hard. I grew up fighting for everything. No, Mama Esther corrected. You grew up surviving. There is a difference. She stood slowly and walked toward the house. Come. Inside, the house smelled of herbs and old books. Shelves lined the walls, filled with journals, photographs, and carved objects. Mama Esther reached for a faded photo frame and handed it to Marcus. His breath caught. The picture showed a younger Mama Esther, standing beside a teenage girl with tired eyes and braided hair. His mother. "That was the day your mother tried to run away," Mama Esther said. "She was scared. Angry. Just like you." Marcus stared at the image, his chest tightening. "She never told me." "She didn't need to," Mama Esther said. "I watched from afar. I prayed. I waited." "For what?" Marcus asked. "For the moment you would face yourself," she said. Marcus shook his head. "So you let me fail?" Mama Esther met his eyes. "I let you choose." Silence filled the room. Then Caleb cleared his throat. "There is something else you should know," he said. Mama Esther nodded. "The university," Caleb continued, "is not the only institution watching this situation." Marcus stiffened. "What do you mean?" Mama Esther walked to a cabinet and opened it. Inside was a neatly stacked file, thick with documents. She placed it on the table. "This scholarship you are on," she said, "was created by a foundation I helped build many years ago." Marcus's heart began to race. "We sponsor students with talent," she continued. "But more importantly, students with character." Marcus felt dizzy. "You're saying—" "Yes," Mama Esther said. "Your education is tied to me." Marcus stood abruptly. "So you set me up?" "No," she said firmly. "I gave you opportunity. You chose arrogance." He paced the room. "You could ruin me." "I could," she agreed. "But that is not why you are here." She looked at him carefully. "Do you know what happens to students who fail our moral review?" Marcus's voice was barely audible. "No. They lose more than funding," Mama Esther said. "They lose protection." A chill ran down his spine. "Protection from what?" he asked. Mama Esther didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened another drawer and removed the same wooden pendant she had shown him before. She placed it in his hand. "When your mother was pregnant," she said, "there were people who did not want that child born. Old grudges. Old fears." Marcus's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I stood between you and harm," Mama Esther said. "For years." Marcus's hands trembled. "Why?" "Because mercy must start somewhere," she replied. Suddenly, Marcus understood the weight of his actions. He hadn't just slapped an old woman. He had struck the very shield that had guarded his life. Tears burned his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I don't deserve any of this." Mama Esther studied him. "Now," she said, "you sound like someone ready to learn." Caleb's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "We have a problem." "What kind?" Mama Esther asked. "The video has reached the wrong people," Caleb said. "People who know who you are." Mama Esther's expression hardened. "They are coming," Caleb continued. "Not for revenge. For leverage." Marcus's heart pounded. "Leverage?" "They believe you are weak now," Caleb said. "That you can be used." Mama Esther placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "This is the second test," she said. "And this one will not be gentle." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Marcus looked from Mama Esther to Caleb, fear and resolve battling inside him. "What do I have to do?" he asked. Mama Esther's eyes were steady. "You must choose humility," she said, "even if it costs you everything you thought you wanted." A knock sounded at the gate. "Urgent." Caleb moved toward the door. "They're early." Mama Esther straightened, suddenly taller, stronger. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Outside, voices rose. And Marcus realized the consequences of his arrogance were no longer just personal. They were dangerous. If this chapter made you pause and think, now is a good moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. This story is just getting deeper. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Are you in the US, Africa, or somewhere else? And let us know your thoughts. If you discovered your future depended on your character, not your talent, what would you choose? Have you ever seen pride lead someone into unexpected trouble? Share your thoughts below, because the next chapter will change everything. The knock at the gate came again, louder this time. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. He had never felt fear like this before. Not the fear of failing an exam or losing a scholarship, but the deep, cold fear that comes when you realize your actions have pulled you into something far bigger than yourself. Caleb peered through the small opening in the gate, then slowly closed it. "It's not who I expected," he said. Mama Esther remained calm, her face unreadable. "How many?" "Two," Caleb replied. "Both in suits. They're smiling." Marcus swallowed. "That's worse, right?" Caleb nodded once. "Much worse." Mama Esther gestured toward the inner room. "Marcus, sit." He obeyed without question. Caleb opened the gate and stepped outside. The voices that followed were smooth, polite, almost friendly. "Mr. Johnson," one of the men said. "Always a pleasure." Marcus strained to hear, but the words blurred together until the door creaked open and the two visitors stepped inside. They were both well-dressed, mid-30s, clean-cut. The kind of men who looked harmless until you noticed how closely their eyes watched everything. One of them smiled at Mama Esther. "It's an honor to finally meet you in person." Mama Esther inclined her head slightly. "You know it is unwise to come here." The man chuckled. "We've always been unwise." The second man's gaze drifted to Marcus. It lingered there. "So this is him," he said. "The boy." Marcus felt exposed, like an animal under inspection. "Why are you here?" Mama Esther asked. The first man clasped his hands together. "Straight to business. We appreciate that. The video has caused complications." "You mean embarrassment," Mama Esther corrected. "Call it what you like," the man replied. "The point is, your influence is being questioned." Mama Esther said nothing. The second man stepped closer to Marcus. "Young man," he said gently, "do you know how many people benefit from your scholarship fund?" Marcus shook his head. "Hundreds," the man continued. "And all of that goodwill rests on perception. On trust." Marcus's chest tightened. "We are offering a solution," the first man said. "A public apology. A donation. A quiet settlement. The boy keeps his future. You keep your reputation." Caleb's jaw tightened. "And if she refuses?" The men exchanged a glance. "Then the Foundation's past comes back into the light," the first man said calmly. "All of it." Marcus turned to Mama Esther. "What do they mean?" Mama Esther finally spoke. "They want me to trade truth for silence." The second man smiled. "We prefer the term compromise." Mama Esther looked at Marcus. "This is why character matters," she said. "Because talent attracts attention. But character determines who controls you when that attention turns." Marcus felt something shift inside him. He stood up. Both men looked surprised. "This is my fault," Marcus said. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. "I hurt you. I embarrassed you. I started this." The first man raised an eyebrow. "Sit down, son. Adults are talking." Marcus clenched his fists. "No, I won't." Mama Esther watched him closely. "If there needs to be an apology," Marcus continued, "I'll do it. Publicly. Fully. No excuses." The second man laughed softly. "Brave. Stupid. But brave." "And if you ruin me?" Marcus asked. "So be it." The room went quiet. Mama Esther studied Marcus for a long moment. Then she smiled, not the unsettling smile from the bus stop, but something warmer. "Proud. That," she said, "is humility speaking." She turned to the men. "There will be no compromise." The first man sighed. "Then you leave us no choice." They turned and walked out. The gate slammed shut. Caleb exhaled slowly. That was a declaration of war. Marcus's knees felt weak. "What happens now?" Mama Esther placed the wooden pendant around his neck. "Now," she said, "you face the consequences honestly." That evening, Marcus did something he had never done before. He stood in front of a camera. Not a rehearsed apology. Not a carefully worded statement written by a lawyer. Just the truth. "I was wrong," he said, his voice steady but raw. "I disrespected an elder. I acted out of arrogance. There is no excuse." The video spread faster than the first. Some mocked him. Some praised him. Some didn't believe him. But Mama Esther watched quietly from her chair, saying nothing. By midnight, the university released a statement. Marcus Reed's scholarship was suspended pending review. Marcus read it without flinching. "I expected this," he said. Mama Esther nodded. "Loss is often the first teacher." Marcus looked up. "And the others? The people you protect?" "They will watch," she replied. "And they will decide." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Marcus had lost his safety net. But for the first time, he felt something new taking root inside him. Responsibility. And somewhere far away, plans were already being made, plans that would test whether this lesson had come too late. Marcus Reed moved out of the dormitory 3 days after his scholarship was suspended. Not because the university forced him to, because he could no longer afford to pretend he belonged there. He packed his clothes into 2 worn suitcases, the same ones his mother had used when she first sent him off to chase a future she believed in. Students passed by as he carried them down the stairs. Some whispered. Some stared. A few pretended not to see him at all. Marcus did not blame them. For the first time in his life, there was no clear path ahead. No timetable. No safety net waiting beneath his fall. Caleb drove him back to Mama Esther's compound without a word. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It felt earned. That night, Marcus slept on a thin mattress in the spare room. The ceiling was cracked, the walls bare. There was no fan. The heat pressed down on him, but he did not complain. He lay awake listening to the sounds of the neighborhood. Dogs barking. A baby crying. Distant laughter. Real life. At dawn, Mama Esther knocked gently on the door. "Up," she said. "You will work today." Marcus sat up quickly. "Work?" She handed him a pair of old sandals. "You wanted to be respected. Respect is learned with the hands." By sunrise, Marcus was sweeping the compound, hauling water, cleaning shelves, and helping Mama Esther prepare small bundles of herbs and remedies she gave freely to people who came by throughout the day. Old men. Young mothers. Sick children. People who greeted Mama Esther with reverence, calling her Mama, Auntie, Teacher. Marcus watched in silence as she listened to each person carefully, never rushing, never judging. At midday, a boy about 10 years old limped into the compound, his ankle swollen. Marcus instinctively stepped back. "We should take him to a clinic." Mama Esther shook her head. "Watch." She knelt, examined the ankle, spoke softly to the boy, then applied a paste and wrapped it carefully. "Come back tomorrow," she said. The boy smiled, relief flooding his face. "Thank you, Mama." As he left, Marcus felt something twist inside his chest. "You could have charged him," Marcus said quietly. Mama Esther glanced at him. "Why?" "So you can help more people," he replied. She smiled faintly. People are not helped by transactions alone. That afternoon, Marcus recognized one of the women waiting outside the gate. She was the same student who had been filming at the bus stop. Her name was Aisha. She looked nervous when she saw Marcus. "I didn't come to cause trouble," she said. "I just wanted to see if the old woman was okay." Mama Esther welcomed her inside without hesitation. Aisha turned to Marcus. "I didn't expect you to be here." "I didn't either," Marcus admitted. They sat together awkwardly as Mama Esther prepared tea. "You know," Aisha said hesitantly, "that video changed things." Marcus nodded. "For me too." "No," Aisha said. "I mean, people are talking. About elders. About respect. About how easily we forget." Marcus looked at her. "Do you think I deserve forgiveness?" Aisha considered him carefully. "I think," she said, "that forgiveness is less about deserving and more about becoming." That night, Marcus stood outside alone, staring at the stars. For years, he had chased achievement like a trophy. Now, stripped of titles and praise, he felt lighter and terrified. But peace did not last. 2 days later, Caleb returned with grim news. "They're moving," he said. "The same people from before." Mama Esther did not look surprised. "How?" "They're pushing the narrative that your foundation is corrupt," Caleb said. "They're calling for investigations. Freezing accounts." Marcus's stomach dropped. That affects students. Yes, Caleb said. That's the point. Marcus felt a familiar anger rising, but this time it wasn't aimed outward. This is my fault, he said again. Mama Esther looked at him sharply. No, she said. This is power reacting to loss of control. Caleb added, they think pressure will make her bend. Mama Esther walked toward Marcus. And what do you think? She asked him. Marcus met her eyes. I think, if they're attacking the foundation through me, then maybe I shouldn't hide. Caleb frowned. What are you suggesting? Marcus inhaled slowly. Let me speak. Not just apologize. Tell the full story. My arrogance. My fall. What I'm learning. Mama Esther studied him for a long moment. Once you do that, she said, you will never be able to return to who you were. Marcus nodded. I don't want to. That evening, they set up a simple camera in the compound. No branding. No production lights. Just truth. Marcus spoke for nearly an hour. He talked about entitlement. About how success had blinded him. About slapping an elder and not understanding the weight of that act. About losing his scholarship. About sweeping floors and listening instead of leading. He did not paint himself as a hero. He painted himself as a warning. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Students shared it. Elders commented. Parents sent messages. And something unexpected happened. Donations began to pour into the foundation. Small ones. Large ones. Notes attached. For the students. For the elders. For the lesson. The narrative shifted. The men in suits lost leverage. But Marcus did not celebrate. Because late that night, Mama Esther collapsed. Marcus found her on the floor, breathing shallowly, her face pale. Mama, he shouted. Caleb rushed in. They carried her to the hospital in silence, fear clawing at Marcus's chest. As doctors rushed her away, Marcus stood shaking in the hallway. He realized then that some lessons do not wait. They demand payment immediately. And he had no idea if this was the price for his arrogance, or the beginning of something even harder to face. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and old fear. Marcus sat on a hard plastic chair outside the emergency ward, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped so tightly his fingers ached. Across from him, Caleb stood with his back against the wall, arms folded, eyes fixed on the swinging doors that had swallowed Mama Esther moments earlier. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant beeping of monitors and the hurried footsteps of nurses passing by. Marcus's mind replayed everything over and over. The slap, the pendant, the revelations, the work, the late-night conversations. He had never imagined a world where Mama Esther was not solid, not unshakable. In his mind, she had become something permanent, constant. Now that illusion was cracking. A doctor finally emerged, adjusting his glasses. Caleb stepped forward instantly. How is she? The doctor studied them both. She's stable, he said. But she's very weak. Stress did not help her condition. Marcus's chest tightened. Condition? The doctor hesitated. She has been managing heart complications for years. Marcus felt like the floor dropped out from under him. Years. All this time. She'll regain consciousness, the doctor continued. But she needs rest. No agitation. Caleb nodded. Thank you. As the doctor walked away, Marcus pressed his palms against his eyes. She was carrying all this, Marcus whispered. Protecting people. Protecting me. While sick. Caleb said nothing, but his jaw was tight. They were allowed to see her just before dawn. Mama Esther lay small against the white sheets, her breathing shallow but steady. Tubes ran from her arms. Machines hummed softly beside her. Marcus stood frozen at the foot of the bed. She looked fragile in a way he had never seen before. Caleb touched her hand gently. Mama, he said quietly. He's here. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened her eyes. When she saw Marcus, a faint smile touched her lips. You look tired, she murmured. Marcus stepped closer, his throat burning. I should be asking you that. She studied his face as if committing it to memory. You stayed, she said. That is good. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus replied. Not again. Her fingers tightened weakly around his. Life does not always allow us to choose how long we stay, she said. Only how we stand while we are here. Tears slipped down Marcus's face. He didn't bother wiping them away. I never said thank you, he whispered. Mama Esther's gaze softened. You are saying it now, she replied. She closed her eyes again, exhausted. The nurse ushered them out moments later. Outside, the sky was just beginning to lighten. Marcus felt hollow. That morning his mother arrived. Denise Reed looked older than Marcus remembered. The lines on her face were deeper, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Marcus, she pulled him into a tight embrace. I should have told you everything, she said. I thought hiding the past would protect you. Marcus shook his head. I wouldn't have listened. They sat together in the hospital cafeteria, hands wrapped around cups of untouched coffee. She taught me how to survive, Denise said quietly. Mama Esther. She taught me that dignity is not something anyone can give you. It's something you live. Marcus stared at the table. I forgot that. No, Denise corrected gently. You were never taught it properly. Now you are. News of Mama Esther's condition spread quickly. People began to arrive. Students, market women, former patients, community leaders, people Marcus had never seen before, all filling the waiting area with murmurs of concern and prayer. Marcus watched in awe. This, Denise said softly, is what importance looks like. By afternoon, Mama Esther regained consciousness again. This time, she asked for Marcus alone. He sat beside her bed, heart pounding. There is something you must do, she said weakly. Anything, Marcus replied instantly. You must go back to the university, she said. Marcus stiffened. I can't. You can, she said. And you will. He shook his head. My scholarship will be reviewed again, she said calmly, because the foundation board has met. Marcus stared at her. When? Last night, she replied. While you were learning how fragile strength can be. He swallowed. Why would they help me? Mama Esther looked at him steadily. Because you no longer represent arrogance, she said. You represent accountability. She reached for the wooden pendant still hanging around his neck. This was never a shield, she continued. It was a reminder. Of what? Marcus asked. That power is borrowed, she replied. And character is the price. Later that evening, Caleb returned with official news. The university has lifted the suspension, he said. On probation. Marcus exhaled shakily. But, Caleb added, they've also requested that you address the student body. Marcus froze. About what? About respect, Caleb said. About consequence. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll do it. That night, as Marcus walked out of the hospital, he felt different. Still afraid. Still uncertain. But no longer running. He knew now that the final test was coming. Not one of punishment, but one of responsibility. And he had no idea whether Mama Esther would be there to see how it ended. The auditorium was filled beyond capacity. Students stood along the walls. Lecturers sat shoulder to shoulder. Community members filled the back rows, some whispering, some praying quietly, all waiting. Marcus Reed stood behind the curtain, his heart pounding so hard he felt it in his throat. He had faced cameras before. Faced crowds before. But this was different. This time he was not performing confidence. He was carrying truth. Caleb stood beside him. Once you step out there, he said softly, you don't control how they respond. Marcus nodded. I know. His phone buzzed. A single message. From his mother. She's awake. She asked for you. After. Marcus closed his eyes, steadying himself. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Please welcome Marcus Reed. The curtain pulled back. For a split second, the noise hit him like a wave. Murmurs. Shifting seats. A few sharp stares. A few nods of encouragement. Marcus walked to the podium and placed his hands on either side of it. He took a breath. When I walked onto this campus, he began, his voice clear but calm, I thought intelligence made me important. The room quieted. I thought my future mattered more than the people around me. I thought respect was something you demanded, not something you earned. A few heads lowered. I was wrong. A murmur moved through the crowd. I slapped an elder, Marcus continued. Not because she hurt me, but because my pride did. The words hung heavy in the air. I want to be clear, he said. This is not a story about cancellation or forgiveness. This is a story about consequences. He told them everything. Not dramatized. Not softened. The bus stop. The slap. The shame. The loss of his scholarship. Sweeping floors. Listening instead of talking. Learning that dignity does not announce itself loudly. He spoke of Mama Esther. Many of you saw her as an old woman, he said. I did too. And I failed to see what mattered. The screen behind him lit up. A photo appeared. Mama Esther, decades younger, standing in front of a rural classroom, chalk in hand. Gasps rippled through the hall. Another photo. Mama Esther beside a group of nurses. Another. Mama Esther holding a newborn baby. My mother, Marcus said quietly. The auditorium was completely silent now. She was a teacher when there were no books, Marcus continued. A healer when there were no clinics. A protector when there was no protection. The images continued. Letters of recommendation. Community awards. Newspaper clippings. She helped build the very foundation that paid my fees, Marcus said. And she never told me, because she wanted to know who I would become without knowing who she was. Marcus swallowed hard. I failed that test, he said. But she did not give up on me. He stepped back from the podium. I stand here today not as someone who deserves a second chance, Marcus said, but as someone who understands why chances are precious. He bowed his head. The room was silent for a long moment. Then someone stood. Then another. Applause filled the hall, not thunderous, not celebratory, but steady. Respectful. Marcus stepped off the stage, legs trembling. Outside, the sky was bright. At the hospital, Mama Esther waited. Marcus entered her room quietly. She looked stronger. Still frail but present. You spoke, she said. Marcus smiled faintly. You heard? The walls have ears, she replied, eyes twinkling. He sat beside her bed. I told them who you are. She shook her head gently. No, she said. You told them who you are. Marcus reached for her hand. I don't know what happens next. Mama Esther squeezed his fingers. Neither do I, she said. That is the gift. A nurse entered, smiling. You have visitors, she said. The door opened. Students, lecturers, parents, even the department head. One by one, they greeted Mama Esther with gratitude. Not because of Marcus. Because of her. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Mama Esther asked Marcus to lean closer. My work is done, she said softly. Marcus's chest tightened. Don't say that. She smiled. Do you know why the tree does not follow the fruit? He shook his head. Because the fruit must learn to stand alone, she said. Tears fell freely now. Live in a way, she continued, that makes the slap impossible to repeat. I will, Marcus whispered. Mama Esther closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. And gently, quietly, like someone slipping into rest after a long journey, she was gone. The news spread quickly. But this time, it was not scandal that traveled. It was legacy. The foundation was renamed in her honor. Scholarships expanded. Respect workshops introduced. Marcus returned to school, not as a symbol of redemption, but as a reminder. He volunteered at bus stops. He listened more than he spoke. And every morning, before stepping out, he touched the wooden pendant at his chest, not as protection, but as responsibility. Because he learned the truth too late for pride, but just in time for purpose. If this story moved you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more powerful stories like this. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and answer this honestly. What would you have done if you were Marcus? Have you ever witnessed disrespect turn into a life-changing lesson? Share this story with someone who needs the reminder. Because respect costs nothing, but arrogance can cost everything. Thanks for watching.